Joining me now live from Istanbul is Harun Armağan. He's the Deputy Chairman of Human Rights with President Erdogan's AK party. Welcome, Mr. Armağan. Now, you must be celebrating what President Erdogan is calling a festival of democracy. But his rival Muharrem İnce says Turkey is cutting its links to democracy and heading for a one-man regime. Is President Erdogan not too powerful with his executive presidency?
No, I disagree. But let me start by congratulating and saying big thank you to hundreds and thousands of AK Party volunteers and members who have been working day and night to make sure that Turkey continues on a trajectory of economic prosperity and innovation. And regarding to your question, we have a new system. It has appropriate checks and balances, and we believe that this system will bring Turkey much further and will make Turkey a progressive country. And last year, when we had the referendum, the majority of people of Turkey have thought so, and they voted yes for the new system.
Yeah, 51% of them voted yes. Let's now take a look at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which was monitoring the elections in Turkey. First, let's have a listen to what they had to say, and then we'll continue our conversation.
The incumbent president and his party enjoyed a notable advantage, also reflected in the excessive coverage by government-affiliated public and private media. The restrictive legal framework and powers granted under the state of emergency limited fundamental freedoms of assembly and expression, including on the media.
So, Mr. Armağan, the coordinator criticized two aspects of this election. He talked about unbalanced media coverage in favor of the government and restrictions under the state of emergency. How legitimate can an election be under these circumstances?
First of all, I disagree with those both comments. I was watching the press conference as well, and let's also emphasize that the participation to this election was over 87%, which is a record in European countries. And the group also claimed that the election was free, and they had just concerns about these two things. But also, let me address those two things. The media coverage, as far as I can talk on the state TV coverage, state TV has given enough and equally spaces to all candidates, and all candidates had chance to run their campaign on the state TV channel. When it comes to the private channels, like in every other country, for example, in the UK, only two people has ownership of 60% of the press media. So this media corporation owners can change, and this is something related to their business, and it's a problem in many democracies.
We've been watching the elections in Turkey in the months leading up to this election, and there was quite a crackdown on the press, as well as the UN says, for example, 160,000 people were arrested under the state of emergency laws, and even more were kind of dismissed from their jobs. How does that square with a democratic government?
And if you allow me to finish my first point, and Muharrem İnce himself, he said that this was a landslide win. So he himself accepted that he was defeated in the election, and it was free choice of Turkish people. And let's not forget that over 55 million people went to ballot boxes to vote. I mean, it's a high record number, and it's time for us to respect democracy and the people's decision. And I also don't understand this hypocrisy. Whenever President Erdogan wins the election, it's rigged, but if he loses, it's democracy. I don't understand this hypocrisy.
Mr. Armağan, no one is saying this election is rigged, but the circumstances under which the elections were carried out are being questioned to some extent. But you talked about Muharrem İnce. He also conceded defeat, but he did say that Turkey was cutting its links with democracy and it was heading towards what he called a one-man regime. What are your comments on that? How do you respond to that?
First of all, he, like I said, he himself admitted that it was a fair elections, free elections, that people expressed their opinion, and he was defeated. He himself told that, and he even offered to help President Erdogan to express his opinions. He said, I would like to come and visit him to share my advices. And when it comes to your point about state of emergency, when I said hypocrisy, could you please tell me when the state of emergency was in France last year, when they made the elections in 2017 under state of emergency? It's no problem for democracy. But is that a problem when it's happening in Turkey? Isn't this hypocrisy?
But we're questioning actually what some of your own people in Turkey are saying about the election there. Mr. Harun Armağan, the deputy chairman of the human rights section of President Erdogan's AK party, thank you very much for talking to DW and sharing your perspective with us on the day that President Erdogan has been re-elected as president.
Thank you.